Stephen Curry delivers another miracle to save the Warriors season in a thrilling victory over the Clippers in the 9-10 playing game on Wednesday night. All the reaction to that coming up next. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. Stephen Curry had just returned from a 27-game absence due to a knee injury. Plenty of people questioning whether he should come back at all. The two-time MVP had 8 points in the first half. All I saw in social media was that he was lacking burst and energy stemming from that injury. Golden State were down 13, 98-85 early in the fourth quarter. All of it didn't matter in the end. Curry went for 35 points, 27 points in the second half to lead the Warriors to a thrilling 126-121 victory over the Clippers on Wednesday night. And in doing so, sees them advance to face the Phoenix Suns on Friday night, with the winner to go on as the 8th seed and face the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. My goodness, what an enthralling finish to that game. As I said, 98-85, fourth quarter, the Warriors down now. It was a game of runs at the end of the day. It felt like it was just a continued process of the Warriors getting close within a basket or so, the Clippers extending it back out to 8 to 12 points. Around that margin, the Warriors would come back again with their own run. And then the Clippers were just never able to land the knockout blow. And if you leave a team that has Steph Curry, albeit one that's maybe not at 100% fitness, obviously, following the injury, but if you leave a team that has Steph Curry available and up and fighting and not on the floor completely, then you're in some trouble, because Steph can land some punches of his own. And that's just what happened in the second half and in the fourth quarter, where he hits that dagger three in the final minute to put the Warriors ahead. And then it wasn't just Steph who delivered a vintage performance down the stretch. Draymond Green, who to that point hadn't had a great game necessarily, he has 2 huge plays defensively on Kawhi Leonard. First of all, getting the deflection on the inbound pass to get the ball to Pods, and Pods got the N1 layup on the other end to give the Warriors a 6-point lead and control of the game. And then on the following possession, Draymond basically gets the ball just straight from Kawhi, just absolutely plucks the ball from him down the other end as a foul. And the Warriors effectively, that was the game right there with 2 big Draymond Green defensive plays. A lot of talk, obviously, about Draymond and his impact on the Warriors and the offensive limitations and the $27.6 million player option coming up. But he is still capable. He is still very much capable of defensive plays that not very many in the league can produce in the biggest moments against one of the best players in the league in Kawhi. So salute to Draymond. I've been very critical of him over this season, but he's locked in. He's remained locked in on a season that he could have easily just checked out of. And I think at times he's probably checked out of, and understandably so. But he's remained in it enough from an emotional mindset standpoint to, when the game is on the line and you need a couple of clutch stops down the stretch in the final minute of that game, he comes up with exactly that. Certainly Steph's game, though, 12 of 23 shooting from the floor, 7 of 12 shooting from three-point range. His third quarter was huge, 16 points, again, just to keep the Warriors alive, essentially. It wasn't a matter of Steph going off and the Warriors getting a big gap on the Clippers whatsoever. It was about Steph going off and just keeping close enough to the Clippers where they could try and do some damage down the stretch, which is exactly what they did. Again, fourth quarter, down 13. Al Horford, terrible game to that point. Absolutely terrible Al Horford game through the first 3 quarters. I think he was a minus 20 through the first 3 periods. Comes out, and as veterans do, this is why you have veteran players in moments like this, because they can stand up regardless of the fact they've had a terrible game to that point. They can stand up and deliver when it's needed most, and that's what Al Horford did. He put the first 3 quarters behind him, didn't let that influence his final stretch on the floor. 4 3-pointers, 4 big 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. Absolutely massive, the last of which gave the Warriors the lead with, just over 2 minutes remaining. And that was their first lead of the ball game since early second quarter. So massive performance from Al Horford as well. Kristaps Porzingis didn't close the game, but was absolutely massive in, once again, just keeping the Warriors close, keeping them around, making sure they weren't completely knocked out with, early in the fourth quarter and in that second half. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, couple block shots, efficient 8 of 12 shooting from the floor. Very positive Kristaps Porzingis performance. And I don't know how you can look at that and wonder two things. One, how the Warriors could just let Kristaps walk in free agency this offseason. I think they have a responsibility to make sure that he's back now. Again, the injury health concerns mean that it needs to be on something far less than the 30.7 he's making this season. But when he delivers that kind of impact in that kind of game, you don't necessarily need, as much as you want him available throughout an 82-game regular season, to produce that kind of performance in an elimination game proves to you that if you can just get this guy fit and healthy, and with Jimmy Butler back and maybe one or two other roster moves, this team could be dangerous next season. Of course, these are all big ifs when it comes to KP's health and injury concerns. But that was a big performance from him that further vindicates the trade to some degree. Obviously, the final result of that we're not necessarily going to know for maybe a few years in advance. But I think it was definitely a reiteration that the Warriors need to try and bring this guy back on something between $18 and $20 million a year in free agency. We'll wait and see what he has in store for us on Friday against the Suns. Secondly, I don't know how Al Horford can have that fourth quarter performance and then just wander into retirement if the Warriors were to lose on Friday against the Suns or lose in the first round against the Thunder or whenever it may be. Horford continues to prove that he is a valuable NBA rotation player. Once again, a guy that can step up in the biggest moments, who's going to knock down clutch shots. He's 39 years old. He's 19 years into his NBA career. Of course, he's got the $6 million player option for next season. We'll see what happens with him. We'll see if he opts out and decides to leave the Warriors for another team, which, based on their injury concerns and the fact they haven't necessarily looked too much like a contender this season, I wouldn't begrudge him for that necessarily. He doesn't have a huge history with the franchise at all. Or potentially he might opt out and head into retirement, as he reportedly considered last offseason before eventually signing with the Warriors. So if I was Al Horford and I've just gone through what I did in the fourth quarter, discussions with my family, I'd be pointing to the tape and being like, while I can still do this, while I can still deliver for a team in this manner, in this moment, probably shouldn't be heading into retirement. And we'll see if his career with the Warriors continues beyond this season. Other positives from this game, G. Santos kind of punctuating his improvement, I suppose, over the last few months here with a massive postseason performance and continuing to prove that Golden State have got one of the best contracts in the league with the 3-year, $15 million extension they were able to get Guy on a couple of months ago now. 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Few turnover issues, which has kind of plagued him somewhat here over recent months, but that's not surprising when a guy starts to get more offensive usage. A couple of things that I love with Guy. First of all, back in the starting lineup in this game, which I think I expected, but it was still nice to see, I think, because there were some thoughts around that after he came off the bench on Sunday against the Clippers. Could they potentially start 3-guard lineup again with Podziemski, Melton, and Steph, obviously? They go back, Steve Kerr goes back to Guy, Draymond, Porzingis front court. And I think that's just a reward, I think, for how good he's been. I think it would be unfair if he was suddenly to become a bench player for a game such as this. And secondly, I have been slightly concerned since Steph came back about Guy not necessarily continuing that same aggressive self that we've seen from him over recent months without Steph. And there's like a play early on, he gets a switch onto Darius Garland but basically just takes him into the post, spins off him for a layup over both John Collins and Brook Lopez at the rim. And I tweeted about it. I said, that's just fair. Because Steph was on the floor at the same time. And for him just to recognize the mismatch and go at it aggressively and not worry about what 30's doing over on the other side of the floor or anything like that. That was fantastic to see, because there are some guys that play with Steph and who are scared, I suppose, at times. And potentially, rightfully so. He's like the greatest shooter of all time. He's the greatest player in franchise history. It's Steph Curry. So it's understandable to say, geez, to second guess yourself and be like, geez, should I really be taking this offensive possession? Should I really be taking this shot? Should I be making this play in this moment when I could try and get a shot for Steph Curry? So we understand that. But for Gee to continually be aggressive throughout the game, to take advantage of Steph's gravity rather than seeing it as a burden of having to try and get Steph the ball all the time. 20 points, again, continually went at Garland, who was guarding him for much of the night, and he's just too big, too clever with his footwork around the rim. Absolutely fantastic to see. Knocked down a couple of threes, I think, in this game. So Gee to have a performance like that after his improvement, that's really big for a young player. Now, I know it's not the playoffs, but for Gee going into the offseason to say, I've had this improvement and I just vindicated the improvement with a big postseason showing, I think that's really important. Similar can be said for Pods. Pods didn't have a terrific game necessarily, but I thought he was fine. 17 points, 7 rebounds. I think he was a plus 10 in the game. Pretty solid showing again from Brandon Pajemski. Kind of came in and out of the game a little bit, but it's really important for those young guys to try and end your season on a positive note, right? And to be able to go into the offseason believing in what you did over the past couple of months rather than questioning whether or not what you did was a facade just because Steph and Jimmy were out. Right. So impressive performances, particularly from Gee. But I'm still here shaking my head about Steph because I've spoken so much about should Steph even be coming back? Are the Warriors even taking this game seriously when you think about the minutes restrictions and something like that? Perhaps the biggest question is this even good for the Warriors? Is it actually better for them to go out and lose in the play-in and have a 9.4% chance at a top 4 pick? On paper, that sounds better than having a 2% chance at going at the Oklahoma City Thunder and trying to win in the first round, which ESPN, their analytics department, says the Warriors have a 2% chance if they would have advanced to play the Thunder. So on paper, in theory, getting into the draft lottery is probably a better result. But you know what it doesn't account for? It doesn't account for the passion. It doesn't account for the emotion. It doesn't account for the genuine joy that Stephen Curry and the Warriors bring in a game such as this. And I think Steve summed it up best, where he said, it's just for the night, but we feel like champions again. We got this moment, right? Which is maybe somewhat sad to say because this is a four-time championship winning franchise over the past dozen years. To win a 9-10 playing game and describe yourself as champions again for the night maybe is a little bit sad. But this was a playoff-like atmosphere. This was a big game. There was that kind of feel to it and emotion to it. And to have Steph have another 35-point performance, to pull off this kind of miracle against the odds on the road in a 9-10 playing game, it's that passion and that joy, that emotion that we feel that you can't describe and you can't put a quantitative value on when you're asking questions of whether or not the Warriors should just punt the season and try their luck at the lottery, right? Even if we get, if the Warriors do advance, I think this is a nice reminder that if the Warriors were to advance and face the Thunder in the first round, even if they were to lose in 5, getting a Steph Curry masterclass game where he goes off for 40 and the Warriors win a game over the Thunder, that still holds some value, I think, to us as fans, because we get to see this guy who's, let's be honest, coming towards the end of his career. He's 38 years old now. We get to see him do it one last time, or however many times are left. Who knows how many times are left for him to be able to do this. And so for him to have another performance like this, you can't put a value on that. Like you can, it's a 9.4% chance of getting a top 4 pick, or there are a 2% chance of beating the Thunder, or whatever it may be. So when we're answering these questions about whether or not it's actually good for the Warriors winning this game and potentially advancing to the playoffs, it's very easy for me and for all of us to sit here and think, nah, let's just try our luck at the lottery. No point risking Steph. I talked about it. No point risking Steph going up against, Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and Casey Wallace. And that still holds true to some degree. But in the meantime, you get a game like this, you get a performance like this from Steph and the Warriors that reignites the passion and reminds you why you're a fan, first and foremost. The Warriors advance to face the Suns in Phoenix on Friday for a playoff spot in what is the latest iteration of the rivalry between themselves and Dillon Brooks. Phoenix fell to a tight 114-110 loss to the Portland Trail Blazers on Tuesday night behind a huge 41-point performance from Denny Avdija. What did he have? 41, 7, and 12 or something like that. Quite remarkable as the Trail Blazers responded in the fourth quarter after falling behind by double digits. If you're a team like the Suns and you now have to come up against the Warriors, it feels like the winner of the 9-10 game always has a greater chance now than what you might think going into these matchups, purely because they're coming on the back of a win and the confidence and momentum that stems from that, as opposed to a loss. Because as the Suns, you finish as the 7th seed, you enter as favourites against Portland. You have a 189 lead, I think it was, in the fourth quarter. You're expecting at that point that in the next 10, 15 minutes, we're going to be secured as the 7th seed in the Western Conference, and then we're going to be taking on the San Antonio Spurs in the first round of the playoffs. And even though we might lose, it's certainly a positive season for Phoenix because they weren't expected to make the playoffs whatsoever going into it. They were expected to probably not even be in the play-in tournament. Now it's like, well, we finished as the 7th seed, so there are expectations. And so who actually faces more pressure in Friday night's game? I would argue the Suns, because, again, they've come from a situation where they expected, with 6-7 minutes to go in that game, to be finalised as the 7th seed. And now you not only lose that game, you have to go against Steph and freaking Curry and a Warriors team who have been there before, who have done that, who have so much experience in big matchups, not only with Steph, but Draymond, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford. Like, this is not an easy scenario for Phoenix to face here. And that's exactly why I think the Warriors have a really good chance of winning this game. I don't see going into Phoenix and trying to win this game as any more difficult than going into Los Angeles and beating the Clippers. The Clippers, you could argue, have been a better team than the Suns ever since the start of the calendar year, you would say, maybe even going back to December. The Clippers obviously had an awful, awful start to the season, really turned it around, were a bona fide playoff team by record over the final 50 games of the season, essentially. But because of their terrible start, they put themselves in a position where they had to fight to try and get the 8th seed. They couldn't manage to do it. Portland pipped them for that. They finish as 9th, and then you get, again, a one-off elimination game against Steph and Curry, and anything can happen. And that's the problem that the Suns face right now. I'm going to be super interested to see what happens in Friday's game. Do the Warriors carry this momentum that they built in the fourth quarter of the game against the Clippers into that game and start off red hot, obviously overcoming the 13-point deficit against the Clips? Do Phoenix come out breathing fire and respond from the disappointment that stemmed from Tuesday's defeat? Or does that also seep through, and the disappointment of that and the late game meltdown, does that seep through into their performance on Friday? It's going to be super fascinating. I'm assuming that Phoenix will go into slight favourites, but again, as a Warrior fan, I don't feel any less confident going in to try to beat the Suns as I did going into to beat the Clippers. I fully expected the Warriors to lose to the Clippers, to be totally honest. And so now that they've got through that, I'm thinking, yeah, they can beat the Suns. No doubt about it. We saw in that game on Tuesday against the Trailblazers, Jalen Green went for 35 points, and I think took 29 field goal attempts in that game. Devin Booker only took 17. And not only do the Warriors have a history with Dillon Brooks, and there's probably going to be some extracurricular stuff going on there. Him and Draymond probably get into it. He's going to be guarding Steph. He's going to be trying to foul the crap out of Steph and get away with it. is going to try and be a potential game winner, right, for Dylan Brooks, like the match winner for Phoenix, right? He's been so important to them this season. But just quietly, the Warriors also have a bit of a history with Jalen Green. And the history in the first round of last season's playoffs was pretty terrible if you're Jalen Green, right? Didn't do much for his reputation or his standing in the league with his performances across those seven games. Had a really strong game 2, I think it was. Did he go for 30 or something like that? Aside from that, it felt to me as if the Warriors were happy letting Jalen Green run the show for Houston and basically saying, this dude can take as many shots as he wants. We feel comfortable that a Jalen Green-led offense is going to mean good things for us. You saw how hard Draymond guarded Şengün. I think the Warriors had far more respect for Alperen Şengün and what he could deliver in that playoff series compared to Jalen Green as the two young offensive-minded guys of that team. And really, Jalen Green's disappointing performance in that series and the Rockets' struggles as a whole offensively throughout that really helped lead to what they did in the offseason, which was trade Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks and the number 10 overall pick, which resulted in Kaman Malawach for Kevin Durant, a superstar forward. Are the Warriors, if I'm Jalen Green, I've got to be expecting that the Warriors are actually going to give me a little bit of rope. Like, I'm not sure the Warriors are going to come out in Friday's game and get really up into Jalen Green and put a heap of defensive pressure on him. I think they might try and do that for Devin Booker as much as they can. We saw Draymond guard Kawhi against the Clippers and do a fantastic job, particularly down the stretch. Kawhi had 2 points in the fourth quarter, and those 2 points were a ridiculous basket in the final 20 seconds that no one will really count. Who does Draymond? Does Draymond get a matchup? Does Draymond go and guard someone? We know, like, the two most explosive offensive players for the Suns are Devin Booker and Jalen Green. Because they don't get a whole lot from their front court necessarily, I wouldn't be shocked if Draymond goes and guards Devin Booker and says, I'm going to take you away. Even if that means, look, Jalen Green actually gets some 20 pretty decent looks throughout the game. We think that'll actually work for us because we saw what happened in the playoffs last season. Jalen Green had like one and a half good games out of 7. And even in Tuesday's game, yeah, sure, he has 35 points. It worked for Portland. They come out of there with the win, an upset win, having entered as underdogs. So what's the Warriors' approach to Jalen Green? That's perhaps the most interesting factor for me. In terms of the Warriors and their rotation, we saw them only go 8 deep on Wednesday against the Clippers. I was a little surprised with that based on all the minutes restriction stuff we were hearing. But then I wasn't surprised at the same time because initially before that kind of minutes restriction talk came out, I thought, yeah, this feels like an 8-man rotation. It's a very obvious, and that's at least the Warriors have got to this point in the season and they know what their rotation is. Their top 8 is very clear. I tweeted it out a couple of days before Wednesday's game and said, well, this is the 8-man rotation for the Warriors. And then people were saying, well, Seth should play. Maybe Will Richard should play. Charles Bassey should get some minutes. And yeah, okay, sure, those guys could play. And I think Seth has got enough experience and has enough shot-making qualities to be like, if you've got to put him out there, I don't feel totally uncomfortable about it. But it's a very clear top 8. And I actually want to applaud Steve Kerr for restricting it to only 8 against the Clippers. Now, we saw Steph go off early in the game. I'm not sure if that was an injury or that was just some theatrical stuff almost, like just putting some anxiety into his own fan base and maybe putting some of the Clippers' attention towards him while he was even off the floor. Not sure what was going on there. Draymond has this like slight knee concern in the fourth quarter guarding Kawhi with a couple of minutes left. Then comes up with 2 massive defensive plays after that on Kawhi. We saw Porzingis have like a slight leg injury in the first half, but played through it. So are the Warriors going to be dealing with a few injury issues here where they're forced to go to a 9th or 10th guy, a Charles Massey or a Seth Curry or something like that? I doubt it. I'm fully expecting the Warriors to go 8 deep again, and then we'll just see what happens. And either way, I feel like I'm playing as a Warrior fan. It feels like you're playing with house money right now because you got the Steph game, right? You got a Steph Curry masterclass to enjoy and take with you into the offseason. That game against the Clippers was just in itself worth Steph Curry coming back, right? And now it's like, if the Warriors can beat the Suns on Friday, it's probably because you get another Steph masterclass performance and you get great joy out of it and it's fantastic. Or you still get the masterclass against the Clippers and get the joy and passion from that, but you still get to keep your lottery pick at the same time and see if you get your luck at the lottery. So I don't want to say it feels like a win-win situation for the Warriors, but it's maybe as close to it as you can get, honestly. So I feel like I want them to win because I want to feel that joy and emotion that Steph and company can bring with those type of performances. But as I said before Wednesday's game, I don't think anyone is going to be hugely pissed off and frustrated and disappointed if the Warriors lose. Like, we all understand the situation. You've got no Jimmy Butler, no Moses Moody, Steph just coming off a 27-game absence. Like, it's not going to feel as devastating as what, an elimination might feel in other seasons. So we'll wait and see what happens in Friday's game, but I certainly give the Warriors just as much chance of beating the Suns as I did of them going into Los Angeles and beating the Clippers. Going to finish up there, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POC252. That's POK252 at X/Twitter. Go and stay with mates on TikTok and Instagram as well. Looking forward to Friday's game against the Suns. Let me know in the comments what your expectations are.